Got it.
Awesome. So welcome to Parenting Differently, where we leave behind the old way of parenting and allow the gifts of motherhood to raise us. Different to how maybe we were raised, different to what society says and how we should raise our kids, maybe different to what we expected and planned that we would be parenting, and also just different. I'm your
Hmm.
host, Anja Simmons, and I am a trained British nanny. And I came to parenting really thinking that I knew it all. This is going to be easy. And then I was kind of shocked that it actually didn't, my children did not follow the manual or the book that I expected. And it was quite a shock, but I realized that we were actually being raised together. For me, it was self-learning and learning more about myself. And for them, just being who they were, raising sort of up into being exactly as they are.
Yes.
Yes, so I'm a mum of two, a yoga teacher, a parenting coach, and I'm super excited today to have my guest Brandy on. Brandy is a yay! Brandy is a licensed therapist specializing in children and child mental health. And where I'm super excited, I hunted her down on Instagram because everything that she stands for. So My Motherhood Magic is her website and her
Mhm.
IG name. And that just sums it all up. I love that. My Motherhood Magic. So
Yeah.
welcome, Brandy. Welcome, welcome. Thank you for
Well,
joining.
yes. Thank you for having me. Thank you for allowing me to share this space with you. I don't know it all, but what I know is what I know, and I'm doing the best. I'm doing the best that I can,
Fantastic.
and so I'm just happy to be here.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Me too. Yeah, we're all just doing the best we can. I mean, we
Yeah.
can't do more than that, right?
Nope.
So let's start with the first question I ask everybody. So, Brandy, when you sit with it, who are you and who are you mothering?
Who am I? I'm a mother. I'm a wife. I'm a daughter. I'm a change seeker.
Mm.
I'm a part of a community. I am, I am an advocate, and I am a cycle breaker. And I am parenting girls differently, like you said. My children are Kennedy, she's 13.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have Karter, who is 6, and then I got Kaiza, who is 2, all girls,
Mm-hmm.
but all different ages developmentally. And like you said, I've learned that raising children is not so much about me teaching them, but them teaching me who I am. And I have been amazed by how they make me show up as my best self. They make me face my fears head on, and they call for me. They call for me to do the work. And when I say do the work, I mean really dismantle my thoughts and my habits around what I think a mother should be or a parent should be, and break outside of that mode. So that's who I am today. I don't know who I'll be tomorrow.
That sounds good today. I'm glad I'm meeting you today. That's fantastic. That's really, I love that. A change maker, right? And then
Yeah.
parenting of daughters is where we know we can really do the work even more so, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
they are, I mean, you've still got a young teen, but as they get more teens, for me, for my daughter, that was definitely way more in my face, as in, okay, who am I? She doesn't think
Yeah.
I'm fantastic anymore.
I
You
know.
know?
And I used to think that parenting very young children, like, ooh, 2 years old is hard and challenging, but I'm finding that parenting a teenager is probably more challenging because they're really oh,
That's
did I
okay.
get
You
out? I'm
popped up.
sorry.
That's okay.
I'm really having to challenge myself in a way that makes me not get triggered by her behavior, and really cultivating a young adult. And I'm like, oh my God, no, this age is tough. This.
Yes. It's a different tough, right? It's a different tough
Mhm.
from somebody needing you and needing you. This is somebody now really stepping into the world, right? So
Yeah.
that's brings up for me a lot more fears than I had when they were younger, and I knew where they were and who they were talking with and where they were, how they thought, because they told you everything, and then suddenly, whoop, nobody tells you anything.
Yeah.
So definitely. Okay. And so you kind of answered this, but my second question I was thinking of for you was, what are you uncovering about yourself on your motherhood journey?
For me, what I've uncovered the most is kind of what I experienced as a young girl. I think for me, becoming a mother, I did kind of what I assumed was the right way to parent. But my intentions were to always kind of like, if I was going to be a mother, if I was going to choose to be a mother and have children, I wanted to do the best job that I could do. Like, I didn't even know what that meant.
Yes.
But I just knew that, like, they deserved way more than whatever I was given. And what became of that is like me experiencing just triggers around my trauma. Being a young girl, not being raised in a single parent home, there was a lot of feelings of abandonment, and grief that occurred that I hadn't processed. And right now I'm raising children with my husband, and watching him be a father to my daughters, it really made some of my feelings that I had kind of suppressed kind of come to the surface, because I was seeing him in that role. And I was like, oh my God, what kind of woman would I have been if my daddy walked me to school, or my father cared enough to be a part of my life? And so I really had to begin the journey towards healing, and really talking to my younger self, so that I could be the best mom that I intended to be. But it only took me to really kind of uncover some of that stuff for me to kind of rise to that occasion.
That's so touching and so brave, really, for you, because it's so easy at that point uh, for it to suppress ourselves even more, because it's scary to go there. At the same time that it doesn't happen compartmentalized, right? It
Right.
compartmentalized. It's all blended, and that's really brave, I think, to sort of say, hey, well, something's happening here. What is
Yep.
it? What's going on? I mean, I didn't have it quite the same, but I had my parents divorced when I was younger. And I always thought, it didn't affect me at all. No problem. Everybody was friendly, And I noticed, when I had mine, and when they were younger, especially, and you question things more, and you go, wow, how does this happen? What if it what if it hadn't happened? What if it was? How would that have changed?
Yeah.
You question, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the reason why I do the work that I do is because a lot of women don't question, and a lot of women don't know how to push past that suppression. They don't know how to vocalize or know that there's something wrong, which is causing me to be triggered by my children, which causes me to want to be frustrated and scream and yell. And so I wanted to be able to really give parents insight to things and concepts they had never heard before. So it, I'm glad that people like me and you exist, and that we are able to provide platforms to give information, but knowing that every woman is not there yet, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And that if we really want to change our future, that we have to give those essential kind of just voice to our mothering community, so that they can be themselves, or be their best selves.
Right. I agree. When I think about before I had kids, and I felt, now I'm quite a bit older than you, but before I had kids, I was sort of always still interested in learning and self-learning and things. And but it was kind of like a sideline, like, that's interesting, I reacted like that, and then when I had mine, it was just so much stronger of the like you say, this need to, I want to be the best I can. Yet the reality that they're friggin' annoying children, aren't they? And they can trigger you, and they're not sitting there perfectly going, yes, mummy, no, mummy, right? And as they shouldn't, but that some days you'd like that. And I think that it's that whole being open to sort of saying, okay, I don't want to be angry all the time, or I don't want to be frustrated every time. And I'm, as a yogi, and I would try meditating, and then I'd come down the stairs, and in 5 seconds I've blown up, right? So, it's a practice. It's a sort of, okay, hang on, what is this showing in me, right?
Yeah.
being who they
Yes.
are. Why is it frustrating me that every morning it feels like such a rush or so sort of annoying,
Yeah.
right?
Absolutely.
So good. Okay. And so, well, you sort of mentioned this a bit too, but in going into the differently, what do you think from your own childhood, stuff that you're doing very differently, that you've consciously chosen to do differently, and then things that from your childhood maybe that you were like, I want some of that for these girls. I want to bring that in, like the good parts.
Yes. So for me, it's about intentionality, right?
I love that
I'm
word.
really purposeful when raising my daughters. I think about the things that I say. I cultivate very organic experiences for them, understanding that there's a long-term effect, right? And so I'm constantly trying to really think about how is this transitioning for my children into adulthood, because our kids are little for just such a short amount of time, but they're adults for a long amount of time. And we still
That's
see
a
a lot of,
fancy. I never even thought of it like that. Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
like, and that's my kind of my therapy tip is when I talk to, parents, I say, our children are little for just a temporary amount of time in their life. It has just such a long-term effect on how they live as adults. So when you're thinking about raising children, you really should be thinking about how you're raising an adult. What adult are you going to be
Yeah, what's
sending
the
out in the
future?
world?
Yes,
What is
yes.
the future? And I don't know if my parents, I mean, I think my mother was very intentional around the things that she provided me, right? Like wanting me to have a good education so that I can go to college, kind of like just check marking those
Right.
boxes. If my father, I believe if he was intentional, I think he would have shown up, because he would have known that his abandonment would have led to me having to have some of these issues. And so those are the things that I really want to do now, is just think. And like you said, conscious, right? Not working from my subconscious, but really thinking about how is this going to, how is this going to make my kids feel? And what am I trying to teach them in this moment? Is it good or bad for them? And what kind of results am I trying to render with what I'm doing? The beauty in the way that I was parented from a mother was her strength. I take that with me everywhere I go. Like she carried her load, but she carried it lightly, which is not always a good thing, because I also think there's beauty in saying, like, I'm tired,
Yeah.
I'm
I'm
stressed, I
having
need
a,
help.
yes, yes, yeah. Being
But
honest, right?
yeah, being
Yeah.
honest. But I think there was some beauty in like just watching her have this resiliency, like, my father not showing up, but her still being very financially savvy, her still making sure that I had those experiences that even though I didn't have someone else there to support me, she made sure that happened for me. Her nurturing spirit, her caring spirit. My mom was not a authoritarian parent. um she in some ways was a little passive, but she didn't need to be authoritarian because we were very compliant kids, I guess. But she always talked to us, she always conversated with us, she always made sure that we felt like we were heard. And she
That's
listened.
powerful. Yeah,
And
that
that
is.
was powerful, because I took that into my parenting. It made me feel like I'm a person here. I'm not
Yes, I
just
matter.
this
Yes.
child. Yeah, yeah. So those are some of the things that I'll keep with me. And then just making sure that I'm intentional with everything that I do.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
that's the thing that I'm really trying to work on.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Um, Actually, so this will be maybe not for you, maybe a little one as well, but I was thinking, like, how do you handle your expectations of your kids, say, which we all have, even though we would like to think that we just float around going, you're just fantastic, but we have our own expectations. And how do you handle that when it's not sort of matching your child? What I mean, does that make sense? Like when,
Yep,
yeah, oh, okay. I don't know how to explain it. Perfect. Like
I get it.
yes, perfect. I know we're on the same page. Like, how are you handling your expectations around when a child is not interested in the same thing that you would like from them?
Yeah, I think first I just think about why do I have that expectation? Where does that come from? Like, where is that? Where am I driving that? Where is that expectation driving from? Is that me feeling insecure or feeling the need to live my life through my children? Is there some unneed dreams and hopes that I have for?
High five. High five. I'm like, shit, she's speaking my language.
You know, because I think about, like, again, like, we're not teaching our kids, we're constantly questioning ourselves. And so really sitting with myself, like, why do I have such a strong expectation for my children to be a certain way or to like a certain thing? And I'm actually going to write a post tonight about this, but, you know, my daughter is extremely into fashion.
Right.
And at a time she was extremely into science and math. And I was driven by her desire to be in a field like science and math, and seeing her flow into fashion, I was like, oh, like, why you want to do that?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, but why don't you want to do that? And why do I want you to be forced into doing something that I think will make more money, or that I think is more established job? Like,
Makes me look good. Yeah.
yeah, makes me look good. Like, or do I want my children to, like, live their wildest dreams? I also really think, I mean, because I'm a therapist, I'm just always thinking about, where are my kids developmentally? Like, if I think about their development, right? And I'm forced to think about that because I have 3 different age groups.
Mm-hmm.
Where are they developmentally? Are my expectations meeting where they are developmentally? And not even just developmentally, because your kids could be 13 but still be like 9, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so am I tailoring my expectations to meet their need where they are right now? Like, if I know my kid's not emotionally mature, I know that my child's not going to be able to explain to me how they feel, you know,
Right.
like, so really tailoring what my expectations around who they are right here, right now, and trying to match that as a mother.
Fantastic. That's great. That's really good. Yeah. Yeah. I don't think you can do better than that. Like, I think that's the ultimate. You know, some days you maybe reach it, some days maybe not, but that being the goal, right?
Yeah.
That's
Yeah. And
that.
then it's not like that every day. I think as mothers, we have to
Mm-hmm.
give ourselves a ton of grace,
Yes.
and we have to be flexible. You know, I think, you know, we have such high expectations, and when we don't meet those, we're met with this huge guilt or
Oh,
disappointment.
the
Like, oh,
motherhood. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you know, my kid didn't do this, or I didn't do this for, you know, and it's like, I don't think that's productive in motherhood.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think we
Mm-hmm.
should just say, I'm going to do the best I can to accomplish this small goal today. If I get to it, great. If I don't, my kids survived and their basic needs were met, and I did the best that I can. And
Yeah.
tomorrow I'll try to do better.
Yeah. 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 And I used to actually say to my kids at times, go, you know, I have never parented you before at this age, at this stage. This is new for me too, right? I'm like you say, working with the tools I have, working with learning new things, working with, let's talk about what works, you know, for you too. But it's new.
Right.
I didn't come prepared for this. I didn't have another 6-year-old at this time who, you know, had this situation. This is new, right?
Yeah, I like that too, because it gives your child perspective. Like, it
Yeah.
allows them to kind of understand, like, oh, okay, so my mom's like learning too. Because I
Yeah.
think sometimes kids think we know it all, and it's like,
Mhm.
well, we're still learning too. We still
Yeah.
are imperfect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So how is it with your spouse? Is he on board in the same way you are, or how do you, without getting intimate, deal with that? Because my husband and I also, I've married many years, kids and stuff, that we actually parent very, very differently. And so I'm just curious as to whether people are on the same page or different pages, and how you manage that.
Yeah, you know, I don't, I think we're also growing as parents,
Mm-hmm.
together and individually. You know, I'm a child therapist, so my expectations are pretty high. I have a lot
Mm-hmm.
of knowledge and
Yes.
education around childhood mental health.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't, right? And so I am learning and working on allowing him to be the best parent that he needs to be, matching his temperament and his character,
Mm-hmm.
and not trying to control or oversee I think the beauty in our marriage is that we consistently are having conversations, and we're okay with saying, you know, later outside of raising our children and just sitting with each other, like, did you think that was useful? Did you think we should have said that? Yeah, let's try to change that. Let's not do that next time, you know, and like really being able to sit and visualize what type of parents, or what are we, you know, what do we want from our children. And so but I've really had to learn that everyone has their own temperament. Everyone has their own style. And I think that's also a beauty with our kids, is that they get a little bit of difference with me and my husband. Yeah, they get that balance. You know, what I may lack, he is very good at, or vice versa. I think that is the great thing about having a 2-parent household, because you get that, you know, you get that mixture.
That was a big one for me too, to ease off, to not be like, listen, I told you they need this at this time, and then if you haven't read them 2 stories, they need to be in bed. And my husband's a musician, and so he didn't care. Bedtime meant nothing to him, and I was working, so it was like, if you have to put them to bed, like but it would be too much that I would just want to say, follow exactly what I would do, as if and then you realize, like, it's a person. And exactly. It's awesome for them, like you were saying, to develop their own relationship with somebody different. Like, that's how the world's going to be. They're actually not going to all be us.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. And just making sure, like, our grounding values as a family are always consistently matching. Like, when we think about the things that are most important for our children to know, those things we don't waver. Those things we are very headstrong, that we really match. But some of the other things, you know, we might not. But as long as we stay pretty consistent with our true, like, values and mission,
I agree.
I think that's the best thing, because I also have a husband who just doesn't want to feel controlled, right? Or like or always
silly man. What is wrong with him?
Yeah, and always having a wife who's nagging, or like, you know, I get the you know, I might say I need a break, and so I'll go outside, or I'll even come up here and do something like a podcast, and I'm consistently thinking about what do I need to go do to overparent him. And I'm like, well, that's not fair to him as a father. Like, if he can do it, I'm confident that I picked a mate who could be a great father. I need to, like, be okay with that.
Yes. Yeah. That's fantastic. That's you got to be a marriage therapist now too. Never mind. Brandy, this is so good. This is so eye-opening for me, and I think so great for, good for our viewers to just hear it. You're so good at saying it just as it is, and I think that we can learn so much from that. It's not it's not confusing. You make it sound so like, hey, I'm making these decisions, this is what I'm, and I would check off every single thing you said and said, yep.
Well, that makes me feel proud.
Oh, good. You certainly should, Brandy. That it's like fantastic what you're doing, very much so.
Thank you.
So the very last one I thought I'd just throw in there, and we'll finish up here, is for you, how do you stay connected to yourself and not get lost in mothering, in wifing, in working, like you, Brandy? Do you have anything to share around that?
You know, I wasn't always good at this. No. I was a therapist, and I dealt with a lot of kids and families who experienced trauma. And I overextended myself, and I poured into everyone's cup. And I got to a place where I just felt burnt out, and I knew I had to do something differently. So now what I do is understand that I'm the vessel, and that I can't pour from an empty cup, and that I have to put me first always in order to be a healthy parent, and a healthy spouse, and a healthy employee, and a healthy everything else.
Right.
That only comes when, like, loving myself. So, you know, the last kind of 3-4 years, I've really journeyed in, like, concepts beyond self-care, but like, Brandy, how are you honoring your core self, like your essence, like your vessel? Like, how are you doing that outside of being a mother, outside of being
just
everything else?
Yeah.
And you know, I've journeyed into, like, how do I rejuvenate? So a lot of that is like making sure I'm breathing, drinking lots of water, making sure that I'm, telling people I need help, saying no, getting rid of toxic, friendships, relationships, jobs, or whatever, things that don't serve me, setting boundaries, all of those things. And when I began to do that, it felt better. I felt more confident as a mother, to do that. And I was like, I need to teach my daughters that, like, it's okay to say no to people. Like, if you don't want to do something, you could say no. And, if you, you don't think that this friendship serves you, that you can kind of walk away from that. And like, so always understanding, like, I'm modeling for my daughters. And so when I say they're calling for me to be my best self, they really are calling me to, like, love who I am.
Yes.
Outside of being their mother.
Fantastic. That is just really awesome, because that is the teaching, isn't it? It's not necessarily saying to them, oh, but you actually live in it, right?
Yes.
You're sort of saying, you know what, I'm done mummying right now. I need to be with myself, or I need to just whatever it be, even if it's vegging and staring at the wall, just I need out for a minute,
Yeah.
That's great. And boundaries, you're right. That's kind of key for many of it. And I had crappy boundaries. I could be swayed so quickly and think, okay, the guilt of feeling like, well, I feel this is right, but I should just be this martyr to my, and it took a while till you start to go, hell no, that's not going to show them, my son or daughter, that they matter if I can't say that I matter.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely. Healthy parents raise healthy children. And we are their biggest, we lead by example. And so you're right. You cannot, tell, especially children in this generation, they'll call you out. Like, you're telling me to do this, but you don't do that either. And it's like, you're kind of right.
I had it the other way, that my daughter was said to me once, I was sort of talking about something, and I said, you could do this or something. She goes, you know what, Mum, that's your problem, your issues, not mine. And I'm like, couldn't you be kinder? I know, but it was true. She was totally true. It wasn't being rude. It was like, oh, you're absolutely right.
Yeah. That's the great thing. That's the great thing.
Well, Brandy, thank you so very much. I appreciate you just jumping in and joining us in this revolution that we need to be out there to parent differently to help change this world.
Yes. And I'm proud to be here with you. I love connecting with other mothers in particular, because we are in this together. We understand each other in a way that, like, the world doesn't understand. And we're stronger together. I know that sounds like cliche and like whatever, but truly we are stronger when we're united. And when our missions align, and we all want the best for our future. And we all want the best for our children. And in order for that to happen, people like me and you have to come together and say, what can we do our part? And I'm happy that I'm doing my part, and I'm proud that people like you are doing your part, because it takes all of us.
I agree. I totally agree. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And I'll just let our listeners or viewers know that I will be posting all of Brandy's information in the comments or wherever one puts it, so that you can find her on social media and around, so that you can connect with Brandy for yourself. So thank you once again.
Yes, join me. Thank you so much.
Okay, you're very welcome.